Hello. So this is more for everyone who uses the methods I teach on the instructor level. So meaning that you give seminars and you do events with groups. One thing you have to keep in mind, and of course I explain that in the courses, but now I have a reason to, like I have a situation which kind of illustrates the simple rule that when you give a group seminar, you have to make sure that you can offer a session and a follow-up to certain individuals with whom you have worked. From the videos I'm going to upload very soon from the seminars, you will see that I used to demonstrate techniques with volunteers, and that can be quite intense. That will go to a level where someone will really get in touch with sometimes something really traumatic, and in order to show the methods of emotional stabilization, of course you need something to show it on. And of course, when a person is willing to do it and even sees in that like an opportunity and a chance to kind of contain an event of the life, you will, of course, if you can and if the setting is right, do that. So today I will have a follow-up session with a participant from one of the small groups I had here in Medellin, Colombia. And she actually wished on the second day of the seminar, when there was the trust in the group was there, and also the trust in what is possible with the method. So this participant had seen a couple of, let's say, smaller processes, more superficial processes. So she was, having the trust in the methods and saw that good stuff is happening, simply. So what then will happen is that people might come with quite extreme events to you in order to deal with them. So what happened then is I didn't know exactly what she did want to process. I let that open to her, and we didn't record that one because I interrupted the camera as soon as I understood what that was about. So we just have the beginning, and I'm not going to show it, also to protect the privacy of that person, of course. There's a lot that you can do in groups, and I probably elaborate that in the materials more, like what are rules and what to do, what not to do. But whenever it comes to especially sexual abuse and childhood sexual abuse, this is kind of where I draw the line on, not that you couldn't do it in a group, under very specific conditions you could look at that, but that is nothing I would show on camera. This is just too personal, and especially because we have other examples from other traumatic events and see how they're being resolved, and it's not that different in the case of sexual abuse. Of course, it is always special in a way, but the actual process, the way you deal with it, the way you contain it, and the way you stabilize a person is pretty much the same. So there is no absolute need for that, and that could be in another setting. And so she was deciding to process something. I asked, like usual, okay, what's the intensity? Yeah, it's an 8, 9, 10. So, okay, there's something, of course, the maximum possible. So it was about childhood, and then it went on. I started the bilateral processing pretty quickly with her because I had stabilized her already a full seminar day, and during the second seminar day also a couple of times, so there was not much stabilization needed in that moment. Session went on very quickly, and I would say the nonverbal cues and also the verbal cues she gave, I never like investigated, okay, what's happening like exactly, because still there was a group of people, but from the emotions she had, like being repelled and disgusted and things like, you know, feeling something in the throat, you know, you can extrapolate from that what that was about. And of course then the way I spoke to her was like not naming these things, but she kind of was there, and we could do the bilateral processing with the eyes in her case. And I used one or even two of the closer friends of hers who were in the group participating to stabilize her by having a touch at the arms and something like that. So, and we went back and forth between the processing and the stabilization a couple of times, and that changed the whole thing after that inner child work, and she could care for these inner children at that age when that happened. So the process was very intense. It was like half an hour for her. I don't really have checked the time, but it was roughly half an hour, and could be stabilized well in the end. Left the group well, but was still very, the last 2 hours of the group, she was quite, you could see that she had worked through something. And given that her current life situation also is not the most stable, I contacted her on the next day asking how she was. Good so far. So that was good. And then she got back to me because I signaled clearly that she can, if something comes up, she knew exactly when I would be leaving. And so she contacted me right before that, and early enough so that we could set up the session of today, where there will be an assistant there, a female assistant as a witness. This is also something I always recommend if you do stabilization work in that way. Especially if it is about sexual content, not only as a man, but of course even more as a man, you have to have someone there. So we have to set this up, and I'm very grateful to the assistant who made herself available today, like spontaneously, and we're going to have a session. I plan for this session, it will be probably a bit of processing plus real good stabilization. She reported to have nightmares, and with the case with nightmares is always like, if it's nightmares, it can be processing and good and constructive, and you just have to go through it. Even though if you wake up, she reported that she could stabilize herself well, which is a good sign. So she woke up from the nightmare, but she could enter a safe place, and that's a good sign. So she could kind of contain it herself, which is amazing. If nightmares keep on repeating in the same way, it might be a sign that that is not a constructive process below it. It's something stuck. And since it's just very few days that I have left here, we cannot wait for that. It might be fine by her, she might be fine by herself, but she signaled that she would like to have a session. It's quite an effort for her. She has to come from a different part of town, and distances are huge here. So that also shows me that she really wants it, because if she makes that effort and makes herself available, people have all busy life here in Colombia. It's like everyone's working hard and long to get by. And so that all shows me she really wants and needs it. There's enough suffering to do another session. So of course I'll do it with her. And so that would be it. I see probably a bit of still processing something that came up now, like the next layer of the issue, and then stabilizing her very well, as good as possible. Probably even putting something in the safe, like to contain it. And she has to know these methods then by herself, but I have a lot of confidence in her that she will do, because she showed that already. Also, after the first day of the seminar, she gave the feedback that she used the safe place, it worked and all this. Those are all cues for me that I would even dare to do something in a group with someone. It's a bit risky, but on the other hand, it is a huge opportunity for everyone. It is just a unique opportunity, which, given the availability of real therapeutic capacity, or people like trauma assistants like me who do stabilization work really well and can contain a trauma, is, I mean, I am, as a non-therapist, have more, yeah, a wider skill set than many therapists here or counselors. This is just the simple, straight truth. I mean, that doesn't only apply in Colombia, it applies to, yeah, basically globally. So this is why it is so valuable to learn these methods, because you can really do a lot. And of course, refer her to a therapist, but like as always, you can say that and she'll probably do it. But first of all, you have to find a good one. Second of all, you have to get an appointment, or the money, or both. And so it's a long shot, basically. So right now, something has to happen for her. I'll certainly report back on how that went. I make it a bit a case to explain to you guys how things should work. Of course, it will be explained systematically in the materials, or is systematically explained in the materials. When you see the video, probably everything is implemented on the online platform. But sometimes, you know, giving this insight in what's really happening on the ground, what was the situation, and how do these rules I provide apply in a real case, you know, what are the decisions I make, it kind of is a bit more interesting maybe. So I hope the noise wasn't too bad in the background. There's a lot of construction work going on here that will affect also the methods I use, because if it's quiet, it's better, you can go deeper, it's easier. On the other hand, oftentimes people who live in a, let's say, developing country, I mean, Colombia is a mid-income country, but still there's a lot going on here, are used to high noise levels and kind of can still go inside and in a trance state quite easily with the imaginative methods. But sometimes I'm, you know, being asked, okay, why these fancy headphones? Do I want to make advertisement for Bose or whatever? Certainly not. I mean, not only are these noise cancelling headphones, like, for me, a lifeline and a strategy for survival, because I am personally very sensitive to environmental noise. I needed to be quiet to focus. Not everyone is wired like that. There are differences, of course. And I thought of giving her the headphones for certain parts of the session where it's necessary. Got to be creative, you know. If it affects her in a negative way, the noise, because it's pretty intense. There's some construction on the road, which is kind of, you know, it's just like hammering the whole time, like constantly. So it's really annoying and might throw her a bit off balance. So those are considerations you can have, and, you know, whatever you have, do the best with it. Sometimes you have the luxury of something like this. Sometimes you have to improvise in a different way. So I hope that was kind of conclusive. That's the current situation here. I'm gonna leave Colombia very soon, like tomorrow evening, and probably will report on other aspects of that. All right, so that was it for now. Thanks for listening.